In the 1970s, a young aspiring writer-director, Alan Shapiro, was studying film at NYU. In 1978, he wrote and directed the short film Briefly Brian, which won Best Student Film. The short film proved so popular it was screened at Cannes, the New York Museum of Modern Art, and was even shown on PBS. With the attention from this, he was able to secure a grant which funded his second short film, Meeting Halfway, which starred a young Keith Gordon. He received a scholarship from Warner Brothers, and as part of that, they sent him to be an assistant on a film for the summer. The film was the 1980 sci-fi horror thriller Altered States, directed by Ken Russell. He did some work on the film, but his time was mostly spent doing food deliveries for the cast and crew. Still, he learned a lot that summer, and it reinforced that he wanted to be a director. After college in 1982, he was looking for a place to stay and ended up renting a guest house in Los Angeles. The family that owned the main house was a husband, wife, and their 14-year-old daughter, Darian. He was trying to write scripts for potential films, but was distracted by the daughter who had developed a crush on him. He made it clear he wanted nothing to do with her in that capacity. Out on his own and doing well financially, he bought his first new car. Shortly after that, he came home to see on the hood of his brand new car was scratched the words, "Alan sucks cock." He confronted the parents, and the girl denied it, although one of her friends confided in him that she did indeed do it. With things now being awkward, Shapiro moved out. He had only lived there for about a year. In 1983, he began working for Disney by writing and directing the TV movies Tiger Town and The Christmas Star. He also produced The Blue Yonder for Disney. In 1990, he wrote and directed the pilot for The Outsiders, which was the TV adaptation of Francis Ford Coppola's film, which was based on the novel. Coppola had seen his work in the past and was so impressed, he was the one who hired him to direct the pilot. Years later, Shapiro was trying to think of a new script to write. He was hoping to do something outside the family-friendly material he'd been doing for the past few years. His wife reminded him of Darian. "Remember that story you told me about the girl who had a crush on you?" He agreed that would make for a cool thriller, and proceeded to write what would eventually become The Crush. The script was loosely based on his experiences. A young writer, Nick, rents a guest house and is outsmarted by an overly intelligent and manipulative 14-year-old girl, Darian. While writing the dialogue for Darian, he based it off the way one of his ex-girlfriends spoke. At the time, the From Hell movies were incredibly popular. Fatal Attraction was the lover from hell. Single white female was the roommate from hell. Sleeping with the enemy was the husband from hell. The good son was the kid from hell. The hand that rocks the cradle was the nanny from hell. So Shapiro pitched the film as the teenager from hell. Studios fought over the script. Universal, Disney, and Fox were all interested, but it ultimately was picked up by Morgan Creek. Morgan Creek was doing well after just releasing a series of hits: Young Guns, Major League, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and The Last of the Mohicans. With a $6 million budget and Shapiro directing, they moved into casting. He worked with casting director Marcy Liroff, who had previously worked on huge films like E.T., Footloose, and Poltergeist. Shapiro had a distinct description of the actress he wanted for the lead. He wanted a 90s teenager with the dramatic force of Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard, the innocence and sensuality of Sue Lyon in Lolita, and the intensity of Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction. Shapiro knew they had to strike gold with the lead or the film wouldn't work. They interviewed a young unknown Reese Witherspoon for the role, and while she had the look, she wasn't quite right for the part. At the time, she was also shooting a far-off place in Africa, which would have delayed the film, so they kept searching. Finally, one day, they interviewed a 15-year-old Alicia Silverstone. She had only one other credit to her name at the time, a small part in an episode of The Wonder Years. She blew them all away and was cast immediately as the villain Darian. Kurtwood Smith had just finished filming Fortress in Australia when he received a copy of the script. He liked it, and after meeting with the director, they hired him for the part of Cliff Forrester. Marcy, the casting director, brought in model-turned-actress Jennifer Rubin to play the love interest Amy. For the main character of Nick, they hired English actor Carrie Elways. Rounding out the cast as the best friend Cheyenne was Amber Benson. Since they were working with a smaller budget, Shapiro did some location scouting in Vancouver, Canada, since it was cheaper to film there. He had also previously filmed The Christmas Star there and was familiar with the location. They found a house with a guest house that was exactly what they were looking for, only it was in a rich upscale neighborhood where they hated filming. It was tough to get, but eventually they landed the location. Right before they started filming, it was Alicia Silverstone's 16th birthday, so the cast and crew held a party for her. After turning 16, Silverstone filed to be emancipated so she could film longer hours, as well as have her own apartment. Filming began in October of 1992 in Vancouver. They shot the exteriors on location, although they built the staircase and landing for the guest house. The interiors for the main house were shot there, with the exception of the attic, which was a set. The carousel in the attic was pieced together by parts the production design team ordered from all over. The interiors of the guest house were also a set. Silverstone took the role very seriously, but while in character, she said things that made the cast and crew blush. At one point when she delivered the line,
"Nick, ever do a virgin?"
What?
You want to.
The AD whispered into Shapiro's ear, "You are one lucky Jew." While filming, they weren't under any restrictions by the studio, so they didn't have to worry if they received an R. While most of the film was fiction, the guest house, the scene with the car being scratched, and the confrontation with the parents was taken from his own experiences. Filming was going along normally until one day Shapiro received an angry call from an executive. They had just shot the scene where Nick's hiding in Darian's room and sent the dailies off to the studio. The executive screamed at the director, "What the fuck is the matter with you? You need to reshoot the scene. I want tits. I want to see some tits." Shapiro argued they couldn't do that since she's underage. The executive then said, "Fine, if I can't see tits, then I want a piece of her ass." So, under protest, the director went back and shot 2 brief nude scenes with a body double. Before he did this, he explained the situation to Silverstone, and she understood. They shipped a special breed of bees over from South Africa that didn't have stingers. When Amy was hit in the face with bees, it was really puffed rice being shot out of a leaf blower. The ones on her hand were dead bees glued on. The picture of Nick with his grandfather was really cinematographer Bruce Surtees with his grandson. For the scene where Nick confronts Darian towards the end, they filled the house with candles. Unfortunately, there were so many candles, it stained the ceiling black with smoke. The director was shooting the film to be campy, but the studio wanted it to be scarier. They said they wanted the film to be fatal attraction for teens. They reached a happy medium where the film has both scares and laughs. Filming ran for about a month. The shoot went very smoothly, aside from the incident with the nudity-obsessed executive. Everyone on the cast got along, and most remained friends. After filming, they moved into post. They hired Graham Revell, one of the most sought-after composers of the 90s, to do the score. Although his biggest film up to that point was The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, after that he did the score for countless hit movies. The Crow, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Craft, Spawn, and many more. For the scene where Darian was sunbathing, the director had a specific song in mind, but the studio didn't want to pay for the music rights. Warner Brothers picked up the film for distribution, so they told him he could have any song from their catalog. He chose Taste by Otto and Cherokee, not his first pick, but the one that fit the scene the best. They screened the film for test audiences, and while the director was nervous, the crowds enjoyed it, and nothing really changed. There were a few scenes that were cut from the film that you can see in the trailer. The one where Darian pulls the cover off of Nick and Amy, which was an extension of his nightmare, and the pool scene. The film opened on April 2nd, 1993 in 3rd place, with a little over $5 million. This wasn't terrible, especially when you consider the #1 movie that week was Cop and a Half with $6 million. The film went on to gross $13 million domestically. Shapiro thought the marketing was what did it in. The studio marketed the film as a serious horror thriller when it was more of a campy thriller that had just as many laughs as scares. On top of that, Poison Ivy with Drew Barrymore was released a year earlier, and The Crush was being unfairly compared to that. Home video was another story entirely. Word of mouth spread and the movie flew off the rental shelves. Alicia Silverstone gained a ton of attention from this, and she won 2 MTV Movie Awards, Best Breakthrough Performance and Best Villain. Now that the film was a bona fide hit, it caught the attention of the parents of the real Darian the movie was loosely based off of. The parents sued Shapiro, Warner Brothers, and Morgan Creek for libeling their daughter. The lawsuit was settled for an undisclosed amount. VHS and Laserdisc copies of the film were already out there with the name Darian.
That's my daughter, Darian.
Oh, I think we met.
But part of the settlement was that future releases had to use another name. They agreed on Adrian.
That's my daughter, Adrian.
Oh, I think we met.
Since they had already lost money on the production, the studio didn't want to spend more. So instead of getting the actors to redo their lines, they brought in ADR regulars to do looping sessions and re-record new lines to say Adrian. The regulars are the same folks who record alternate dialogue for TV broadcasts, usually to remove swears.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
The results were not the best, especially because they repeatedly say her name. Kurtwood Smith didn't know about the reshoots until someone told him. Once he saw it, he laughed at how bad it was. He said the amount of money to have the actors come in and loop the name would have been minuscule. The studio also had to remove any citing of the name Darien, so they had to digitally alter the film. When Nick finds the pillow in Darien's room, they had to change the DF to AF. The biggest nightmare was when Nick finds Darien's shrine. All over was Darien plus Nick, and they had to fix every one. Remember, this was back in the mid-90s, so this was no easy task. The DVD, Blu-ray, and cable broadcasts after that all had the changes. Alicia Silverstone's career took off because of the film. Marty Kellner, a music video director, saw her in the film and hired her to be in the Aerosmith video, Cryin'. The video was a monumental hit. It was one of the most requested videos of the year and won numerous awards at the VMAs. Due to this success, Kellner hired Silverstone for 2 more Aerosmith videos, Amazing and Crazy. Crazy was the debut of lead singer Steven Tyler's daughter, Liv. Fast Times at Ridgemont High director Amy Heckerling saw Silverstone in the Cryin' video and liked her so much she hired her to play Cher in the smash hit Clueless. Shapiro said the movie opened a lot of doors for him, but shortly after, they slammed shut. He co-wrote and directed Flipper for Universal in '96, but hasn't directed since. He was annoyed with the name change in the movie. While he understood why they did it, he couldn't believe they didn't bother to bring back the original cast to redo the lines. While it's not bad in some scenes...
Hi, Mr. Vogel.
Hello, Adrian. I really like you, Adrian.
Did Adrian ever tell you about a guy named Rick?
Adrian!
In others, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Adrian, you can't do that. Well, I was just returning a book to Adrian. She's upstairs.
I had it shipped out here from a carnival in Kansas, right after Adrian was born.
Now, that was a mistake, Adrian.
Adrian? Adrian?
Go play.
The Crush is a studio production that feels like an independent film. Shapiro said a movie like this would never be greenlit by a major studio today, especially with it being R and not PG-13. Some audiences thought the ending where it shows she was now obsessing over the doctor was a setup for a potential sequel. It wasn't, it was just to show that through this whole ordeal, she hadn't learned a thing. Another thing that helped the movie stand out was that unlike so many other From Hell movies, they didn't kill the villain in the end. I love The Crush. While I know it wasn't the first From Hell movie, I personally think it's the best. Carrie Elways and Jennifer Rubin had great chemistry together, but the breakout star was Alicia Silverstone. She dominated the movie and deserved every bit of praise she received.
I tell you, if you were 10 years older...
You'd what?
I don't think it would have been as good with anyone else. The film was lightning in a bottle. If they tried to remake it today, there's no way it would be anywhere near as good.
Whose pool?
That's Rockford's. They're in Maine. Guess they keep it lit up for burglars.
Now, who would want to steal a pool?